At my 8-year-old's $2,500 birthday party, my sister-in-law told her, "You can't eat any of the food. Ask your mom for a plate." All the other kids were served a huge menu of cakes and sweets. I didn't shout. I got up and announced this. The whole room fell dead silent. My daughter Lily had been excited about her birthday for weeks, and honestly, I wanted the day to be simple. Just family, friends, and some cake. But nothing is ever simple when my sister-in-law Brittany gets involved. She insisted on planning every detail and charged me $2,500 for catering alone. I told myself it wasn't worth a fight. I told myself Lily deserved a nice day, and I ignored the knot in my stomach. When the food arrived, all the kids rushed toward the tables. Lily ran ahead of me, smiling, pointing at everything. She loves birthdays. She loves sweets. She loves being included. Most of all, she loves feeling normal. I was walking toward her when I heard her ask, "Does this have nuts?" My whole body stopped. That one word, nuts, changed the tone of the room for me. I turned and saw her standing by the dessert table, holding a plate she hadn't filled yet, looking confused. A child next to her shrugged. Lily looked around for help. "Aunt Brittany," she said, "can I have this one?" Brittany didn't even turn around. She was standing behind the table, moving plates around like she was arranging a display at a store. "Can I have this?" Lily tried again. Without looking up, Brittany said loud and clear, "You can't eat any of the food. Ask your mom for a plate." Lily froze. Just froze. A few kids around her stared too. One already had chocolate on his face. Lily looked at their plates, then at her empty one, then at me. "Mom?" she asked softly. "Did you bring my plate?" Not crying, not whining, just confused and embarrassed. I walked straight over. "What plate?" Lily pointed back at Brittany. "She said I can't eat anything and that you were supposed to bring my food." I looked at Brittany. "Why would you tell her that?" She finally turned around and sighed like I was the problem. "Jessica, she has a nut allergy. I assumed you brought her a safe meal." "You assumed?" "Well, yes," she said, folding her arms. "It's not fair for every other child to miss out because of one allergy, so of course I let them have the good stuff. You should have brought her plate. That's your job." Behind me, kids were already biting into things covered in chopped nuts. Lily watched them quietly, trying not to look disappointed. Paige, her older sister, slipped an arm around her, protective and tense. "Show me the menu," I said. Brittany rolled her eyes. "Jessica, don't be dramatic." But she handed me the catering sheet anyway. I scanned it. Every dessert had nuts, almonds, pistachios, hazelnuts, cashews. It didn't matter what I looked at. Everything had some type of nut. Even the fruit bowls had nut toppings. Safe options existed. She simply didn't order any. Lily's eyes moved from treat to treat, watching other children enjoy everything she couldn't touch. She looked down at her empty hands. The hurt on her face was quiet, but sharp enough to split me open. Behind me, Brittany kept talking. "You always make things bigger than they are. She can just eat later. She doesn't need to make this about her." Then her mother, Sherry, chimed in. "It's not dangerous if she doesn't eat it, Jessica." And her father, Richard, added, "You're ruining the party. Brittany worked very hard on this." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't let myself crack. But inside, something cold settled into place. I stepped onto a chair. "Everyone," I said. The word carried through the room like someone hit a switch. Conversation stopped. Kids froze. Adults looked up. "The food Brittany ordered is not safe for Lily." Silence spread like a wave. "So, we're removing all of it." A few kids gasped. One set his plate down slowly. Lily looked up at me with wide eyes. "I'll be ordering safe food now," I continued. It'll take a little time, so the children can go outside to play while we wait. A parent whispered, "All of it?" "Yes," I said. "All of it." I looked right at Brittany. She looked stunned, then offended, then furious. "If anyone disagrees," I added calmly, "you are free to take your plate and step outside. But this food cannot stay in here with my daughter. No yelling, no theatrics, just a simple fact." My husband Michael moved beside me then, quietly but firmly standing with me. He didn't say a word, but the look on his face was new, a line drawn finally. For a full 5 seconds, no one breathed. Not really. It was a silence with weight. Sherry's mouth hung open like she was trying to speak and couldn't find the words. Richard looked like someone had unplugged him. And Brittany? She stood there gripping the edge of the table, staring at me like she didn't recognize who I was, as if she couldn't believe I was choosing my daughter over her. But Lily? She looked at me like the world had tilted back into place. That silence told me everything. They knew exactly what Brittany had done, and they knew this wasn't over. If you've ever ignored your own instincts because you didn't want to cause drama, let me tell you a secret I learned the hard way. Drama is coming anyway. It just arrives later, louder, and usually when there's cake nearby. I didn't always understand how Brittany became the center of Michael's family universe. I didn't grow up with her, so I didn't witness the early years of her reign. I only got the highlights after I married into the family, usually through uncomfortable dinners where my in-laws would retell old stories with the same proud tone people normally use for surgeons or war heroes. Apparently, Brittany learned to walk early, talk early, dance early, charm teachers early, and ruin lives professionally by the age of 32. Michael existed somewhere around the edges of the family photo album, smiling politely with the body language of someone who'd accepted second place long ago. He tried to warn me early in our relationship. "She's intense," Michael said once, after Brittany hijacked our anniversary dinner by announcing she was writing a book on elevated event styling and insisting we brainstorm chapter titles between courses. "Intense?" I asked. "Like a personal trainer?" "Intense like a small tornado," he said. "But she means well." Right. By the time we had Paige and Lily, now 11 and 8, I'd collected plenty of field data. When I say Brittany was the favorite, I don't mean by an inch. I mean by a full marathon. Every conversation with Sherry and Richard began with Brittany, circled around Brittany, and ended with Brittany's children, Haley and Carter, who apparently could do no wrong. Meanwhile, Paige and Lily were the nice girls, which in their vocabulary meant, don't ask for anything. Family gatherings had a pattern. Haley and Carter were given first pick of everything: gifts, treats, games, attention. While my girls were gently told, let them go first, they're younger. Even if technically they weren't younger, or smaller, or being reasonable human beings. Once, Paige tried to show Richard a drawing she spent hours on. He glanced at it for half a second, said, "That's nice," and then turned to watch Haley demonstrate her special dance, which was just her waving her arms like a damp towel. He applauded like she'd cured a disease. Michael always tensed up during these moments. He'd stay quiet, stiff, like he was watching an old wound reopen. Later, alone in the car, he'd say things like, "They mean well," or "It's not worth the fight," or "I don't want to upset them." He'd learned to shrink himself to avoid conflict. I didn't know yet how deep that training ran. Then came college. Or, more accurately, Brittany's college. When Michael turned 18, Sherry and Richard told him they couldn't afford to help him with tuition. He got a job. He applied for scholarships. He took loans. He made it work because he always made things work. But when Brittany graduated high school 4 years later, there was suddenly money. Plenty of it. "We want her to focus on her studies," they said. "She has so much potential." Michael didn't say a word, not one. He just sat there with his jaw tight while they explained that it would mean a lot if he could contribute too. And of course he did, because that's who he was, because he felt guilty saying no, because that family trained him to feel responsible for Brittany's comfort. By the time I married him, he was still sending them money, quietly, regular amounts. Sherry called it helping the family. It was really funding the favorite child's lifestyle. And yes, that included Brittany's kids later too. Birthday gifts, sports fees, random emergencies. There was always something. I didn't complain. I didn't push. I didn't want to create rifts. But it bothered me. The way they leaned on him financially while pretending he should be grateful for their attention. The way they acted like his success belonged to them, but his needs were an inconvenience. Then Lily developed her allergy. It didn't happen slowly or gently. One afternoon, she took a bite of a cookie at a friend's house. She didn't know. We didn't know. The friend's mom didn't know. 10 minutes later, she was gasping for breath, her lips swelling, her skin blotchy and hot, and I was running out the door with her in my arms, Paige crying behind me, and Michael speeding us to the hospital so fast my vision blurred. I will never forget the sound she made in the back seat. I still wake up some nights thinking I hear it. She lived, but barely. And everything changed after that. No nuts in the house. No nuts at restaurants. No nuts anywhere near her. Paige turned into her personal guard dog, checking labels, watching hands, hovering like a tiny bodyguard with stickers and sanitizer. And the whole family knew, because we told them, more than once, because we needed them to know. But some people take information and file it away. Others take it and pretend it's an opinion. Sherry acted like we were overreacting. Richard thought it was just a kid thing. And Brittany, of course, believed it was an inconvenience. When Brittany announced her new party planning business, she immediately inserted herself into Lily's birthday like it was her first big client. "I'll handle everything," she said, already making decisions before we agreed. Michael tried to push back, but Brittany steamrolled right over him. She always did. "It'll be good exposure," she told me, pretending to offer help while taking control. And just like that, we were locked in. I was paying for things I didn't want, and Michael was shrinking into old habits that his family had trained into him. I told myself it was fine. Just a children's party. Nothing serious, but something in my gut knew better. And I didn't realize how right I was until the moment everything collapsed. Because Lily's birthday wasn't going to be a celebration. It was going to be the moment the whole truth finally snapped open. There's a certain type of silence that feels like the moment before a glass shatters. That's what filled the room after my announcement. Kids froze mid-bite. Parents looked around like someone had pulled a fire alarm. Lily pressed herself into my side. Paige stepped closer, already in protective mode. And then, of course, Brittany snapped first. "You're ruining your own kid's party," she said, voice high and shaking. This is mania, Jessica. Everything was fine." "Fine. Sure, if you ignored the nuts covering half the room." She kept talking, waving her arms like a malfunctioning windmill. "You can't expect nobody to eat something just because she can't. She doesn't have to eat it. You never told me to order anything special. I just assumed. We can order something for her. We don't need to take everything away." Her words came out in frantic bursts, like she was trying to grab control back with sheer volume. Before I replied, Sherry moved in, dragging Richard with her like backup singers in a bad musical. "Our daughter worked day and night on this party," Sherry said, voice rising. "She picked every detail. She planned everything. She did this for Lily, and you're standing here treating her horribly." Michael stood up. He stood so suddenly the room actually gasped. I gasped. I didn't even know he could move that fast. Michael never stands up in conflict. He fades. He disappears. He becomes part of the furniture. But now he was standing between me and his family, shoulders squared, jaw set, looking like someone I didn't recognize. And then he said the words no one expected. "You need to leave." Just like that. No build-up, no emotion, just a clean, sharp command that sliced right through the room. "What?" Sherry whispered. Michael didn't blink. "All three of you, leave." You could feel the shock hit Brittany like a physical slap. She wasn't used to being told no, let alone get out. "Michael," she said, laughing nervously, "don't do this. She's being dramatic." "You put Lily at risk," he said. He didn't raise his voice, but the entire room felt it. Richard tried to jump in. "Nobody put her at risk. She could have died," Michael said, louder now. "And you're defending it." That shut Richard up. Completely. Sherry's eyes went wide. "We didn't do anything wrong." Michael turned toward her. "No, you all stood here arguing about food while she was scared and confused." He pointed toward Lily, who was clinging to Paige's sleeve. "You're not going to do that to her." Brittany swallowed hard. "You're choosing her over your own family?" Michael didn't flinch. "I'm choosing my daughter." He didn't add anything else. He didn't need to. That sentence alone ended the entire argument. For a second, no one breathed. Then Brittany scoffed sharply, grabbed Haley and Carter, and stormed toward the door. Sherry and Richard followed, still glaring back at Michael as if hoping he'd backpedal. He didn't. They walked out into the hallway, and the door slammed shut behind them. The moment it closed, it felt like the air finally moved again. I knelt beside Lily. She tugged on my arm with trembling fingers. "Mom, did I do something wrong?" I shook my head. "No, sweetheart. Not at all." Paige wrapped her arms around her sister from behind, whispering something soft I couldn't hear. Across the room, one of the parents, the kind, quiet type, stood up and said, "Kids, who wants to play outside for a bit?" And just like that, the frozen moment cracked. They scattered toward the yard, relieved to escape the tension. I ordered the replacement food as soon as the kids were outside. It took a while to arrive, long enough for us to breathe, but not long enough for anyone to leave. People helped set it out without being asked. There were small, sympathetic smiles, tiny squeezes on my arm, that silent parent-to-parent understanding. Michael stayed beside me. He didn't speak. He was still breathing like someone who had just run uphill. I looked at him, this man who had spent his entire life shrinking himself around his family, the man who always tried to keep the peace, even when it suffocated him. And now he'd done the one thing nobody ever believed he would do. He stood up. He chose his daughter. He chose us. Lily came back inside, running straight into Michael's arms. He lifted her without thinking, held her tight, buried his face in her hair like he was rebooting from the inside out. Outside, the kids were laughing again. Parents were chatting quietly. Paige was bringing Lily a safe cupcake with sprinkles. And inside me, something settled. Not peace exactly, more like certainty, because once Michael said those words, "You need to leave," there was no going back. The party was still happening around us, kids playing, food arriving, people adjusting. But the real story? It had only just begun. The house felt too quiet when we walked in that evening. Not peaceful. Quiet in the way hospitals get quiet. Controlled, tense, waiting. The girls went straight to their rooms in that post-party exhaustion only sugar crashes can create. Lily was smiling, though. That mattered. She'd eaten her safe food, played with friends, laughed with Paige. Whatever storm happened around her, she still walked out with a birthday. Michael and I stood in the hallway like we didn't know where to put our bodies. He kept rubbing the back of his neck. I kept pacing because standing still makes me feel like I'm drowning. I finally said it. That was insane. He didn't answer, not with words. He just walked into his office, opened his laptop, and his whole posture changed. Not frantic, not emotional, focused. He clicked into his banking apps like someone logging into a demolition control panel. "What are you doing?" I asked, stepping behind him. He didn't look up. "Finishing what I started." 4 taps later, his parents' monthly transfer was gone. 3 more, and the emergency credit line he'd opened for them years ago was canceled. He deleted scheduled payments, standing orders, every financial tie his family had knotted around him. It all happened in under 2 minutes. No hesitation, no regret, no dramatic declarations. Just click, click, click. Centuries of family obligation erased. Watching him do it was like watching someone finally cut a rope from around their own throat. And then, in the middle of the silence, he said, "I'm done." 2 words. Quiet. Final. Terrifying in their certainty, before I could respond, he picked up his phone, typed one single message in the family group chat, and hit send. "Paige and Lily will not be attending any future events. We're protecting our daughters. Please don't contact us again." That was it. No explanation. No apology. No invitation for debate. Michael, professional peacekeeper, just nuked the bridge in one line. I sat down at the edge of the couch, watching him like he had grown new bones. He didn't sit with me. Didn't need to. He just reached over, rested his hand on my shoulder for half a second, the smallest anchor, and then got up again. "Jessica," he said. "Yeah?" "Cancel the catering payment." It wasn't a question. Oh. I liked this version of my husband. Brittany had billed me through her event planning startup. She had even added a little sparkle emoji next to her business name when she sent the invoice. My bank app pulled it right up. $2,500. Brittany Events LLC. I clicked dispute and typed, "Unsafe food provided. Child with known allergy endangered. Service unusable." Sent. Done. It took 14 seconds. Somewhere in the distance, I swear the universe leaned back and whispered, "Uh-oh." Because Brittany noticed fast. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up with her name. Then again, and again. Then her texts started coming in like machine gun fire. "What did you do? You canceled the payment? That was my money. I already spent it. You're robbing me." "Jessica, answer me right now." I did not answer. I turned the phone face down on the couch and stared at the ceiling. "This is going to get loud," I said. Michael nodded once. "Let it." It got loud faster than I expected. Someone sent me a screenshot 5 minutes later. Brittany had posted on her Facebook business page, then on her regular page, then in a neighborhood group, then in the extended family chat. She was everywhere at once. "I was robbed today. My own sister-in-law refused to pay for a full-service party I planned for months. I spent money I didn't have, and now she stole it from me." The comments were rolling in. Some were supportive, because there is always at least one person dumb enough to swallow anything with a sob story attached. But then the real comments started. "Wait, weren't you the one who served unsafe food to a child? If you can't follow an allergy list, maybe this business isn't for you. She was right to cancel. Honestly, you should be paying them. Why did you serve nuts at a party with kids?" One woman even wrote, "Your services are dangerous. Shut this down before someone gets hurt." And then someone else wrote, "Never hiring you. Ever." Brittany's replies were unhinged. "It wasn't my fault. She should have brought a plate. She's teaching her kid to be selfish. None of that food was for her. I did nothing wrong." Watching it unfold was like watching someone try to put out a fire with gasoline. I might have enjoyed it a little too much, but the hit came when I checked her business page again an hour later. 1-star reviews were already appearing, not from the party guests, just from people reading her meltdown. The internet moved faster than guilt. At 9:13 p.m., she posted a final message. "I'm closing my business. Happy now?" Yes, I was. Just when I was about to breathe again, my phone started ringing. Sherry. Of course. Then Richard. Then Brittany. Then the 3 of them in a group call named Family Emergency. We ignored all of them. Michael slid his phone into a drawer like someone putting away a loaded weapon. But they weren't done. Because the next morning, they realized something. The money was gone. All of it. Every monthly payment. Every emergency transfer. Every quiet loan. Years of support they never once said thank you for. The screaming started early. Michael's phone lit up with, "Where is the money? The bank is wrong. Fix this, bring back the payments." "Now you owe us, Michael. Pick up the phone," he replied once. Just once. "No mistake." Silence. Short-lived silence. Because at 11:47 a.m., our doorbell rang. I opened the door slowly. There they were. Sherry, Richard, and Brittany, looking like someone had shoved her into a blender and hit pulse. Sherry started before I even said hello. "You will fix this." Richard. "We relied on that support." Brittany. "I spent that money. Do you know what you did to me?" Michael stepped beside me, and for the second time in 24 hours, he shocked them speechless. "We're done," he said. "No," Sherry snapped. "You don't get to be done. You exploited me for years." She shut up. Richard blinked rapidly. "We never—" "You took money from me every month and acted like it was owed." Brittany's voice cracked. "You stole from me." "You endangered my daughter," he said. "Then you defended it." They all stopped talking. He kept going. "You lied about Jessica. You attacked her. You humiliated her. You tried to blame her for protecting Lily." Sherry swallowed hard. "Michael?" "You're not safe for my kids," he said, "and I will not let you near them again." Her mouth dropped open. "This is the line," he said softly. "And you crossed it." No shouting. Just truth. Brittany stepped forward. "You can't do this." Michael shook his head. "Leave." That one word hit them harder than anything else. They glared. They sputtered. But they left. The door shut behind them with a final, echoing click. Michael leaned against the wall for a moment, palms pressed to it like he needed to steady the world. I walked to him, put a hand on his back. "We're free," I said. He exhaled, long, shaking, like he'd been holding that breath for a lifetime. And as I stared at the closed door, at the silence filling our home, at the space where their voices no longer lived, I realized something. They didn't just lose access to us. They lost control. They lost their power. And they lost the one person who had always said yes to them. Michael finally said no. And this time, it meant forever. So, what do you think? Did we go too far? Or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. At the family reunion, in front of 52 people, my mom raised her glass, pointed at my sister, and said, "This is the daughter who's always loved us. The other one? She's never lifted a finger." I covered their mortgage and paid their bills for 9 years. I smiled and left. The next morning, I had 38 missed calls. The reunion was already in full swing when I walked into the lodge. Red-checked tablecloths, buffet trays steaming, toddlers weaving between chairs with juice boxes. Someone had dragged a speaker onto the porch and was blasting Fleetwood Mac loud enough to rattle the windows. It was messy, loud, familiar. But for the first time in a long time, I actually let myself hope. People smiled when I said hello. Someone offered me sangria. I spotted my dad near the far table, laughing like he'd just remembered how. And I thought, maybe this will be fine. Maybe it won't be perfect, but at least no one will cry in the car this year. Marin was circling the room in a white sundress, barefoot, glowing like a commercial for lemon bars. She was holding a frame, wrapped in tissue paper, tied with a little ribbon. I didn't think much of it. I'd brought a gift too, a reservation for our parents at the fancy French place they always talk about but never actually go to, tucked it under their dinner plate before they sat down. That's how the night was supposed to go. Quiet gestures, shared food, a few awkward hugs, nothing big. But then Marin stood up. Someone handed her a microphone, why I'll never know, and she gave this sweet little laugh like, oh gosh, I didn't plan to say anything, which meant she'd rehearsed it for days. Sorry to interrupt, she said, and clapped her hands twice like she was calling kindergarten to order. I just have a little something for our amazing parents. She turned, held out the frame, and handed it to our mom. It was a collage. Photos of the three of them. Vacations, birthdays, random selfies on the porch. No space for me. Not even on the edges. My mom blinked, then smiled. She stood up slowly, raised her glass, and said, "This is the daughter who's always loved us." A few people clapped. Someone let out a little, "Ah." Then she added, louder now, "The other one? She's never lifted a finger." The room went quiet. Someone coughed. A fork dropped. I didn't look around, but I could feel it. The confusion, the shift, the sudden need to pretend it hadn't been said. I didn't say anything. Didn't cry. Didn't ask what the hell she thought I'd been doing all these years. I just picked up my bag, walked to the door, and left. No drama, no scene, no raised voice. Just this weird, bone-deep clarity that if I stayed another second, I'd never be able to forget the sound of everyone not standing up for me. I drove home in silence. No music, just the blur of highway lights and a quiet list forming in my head. How many times had I wired them money? How many bills had I paid so they could get through a rough month? How many birthdays had I skipped to work overtime so they could keep their house? I covered their mortgage. I paid their bills for 9 years. And in front of 52 people, I was erased. But fine. I smiled and left. 15 hours later, I had 38 missed calls. They started coming in around 6:17 a.m., which felt bold considering no one cared where I went when I walked out the night before. The first few were from my mom, then a couple from Dad, then, my favorite detail, 14 from Marin. 14. The girl who hasn't called me in months unless she needed help with her taxes suddenly turned into a telemarketer. I made coffee, sat on the edge of the kitchen counter, and just stared at my phone screen as it kept lighting up. Eventually, I picked up. Not because I was feeling generous, but because I was curious how they'd open this one. "Oh, thank God," Marin said. "We didn't know where you went." "Are you okay?" I sipped. "I'm great." "Well, we can't get on the boat." "What boat?" She huffed. "The group tour? The little sightseeing cruise they were doing this morning? We showed up and they said it was canceled. Something about a card declined?" Ah. That's it?" "Well, the card on file was mine." And I canceled it. There was a long pause. I could hear her blinking through the silence. "But why?" she said. "Mom and Dad are freaking out." "Because Mom stood up in front of 52 people and said I'd never lifted a finger," I said. "So I figured, why not make it true?" Another silence. "Okay, but the whole trip?" "Yep, lodging too." "You canceled their cabin?" "It was in my name." "They don't even have a way back." "Well, then I guess you'll need to pay for their tickets." I don't have the money. That's okay, I said. You're the daughter who's always loved them. I'm sure they'll understand. And I hung up. I didn't feel proud, not in the typical sense. No big victorious swell in my chest. I just felt still. After 9 years of quietly wiring money, paying the mortgage, the electric, the groceries, the dentist bill that somehow became urgent every 6 months, silence felt like the most honest response. They didn't even know how much I covered. Not really. And I never threw it in their faces. Never said, "Hey, just so you know, this trip you're all enjoying?" I paid for that. I didn't need confetti or applause. I just wanted to be treated like I mattered. But apparently, a framed photo collage from Marin mattered more. You want to know the worst part? I wasn't surprised. That moment, my mom lifting a glass and saying, "This is the daughter who's always loved us." It didn't come out of nowhere. It came from years of this exact pattern. Marin was always the star, the performer, the creative one. She made them mix CDs in high school and handwritten cards with glitter that got everywhere. They ate it up. I, meanwhile, was the reliable one, the steady one, the one who got a good job and moved 2 hours away, the one who paid down her student loans and helped Mom refinance the mortgage when Dad was too embarrassed to ask. They'd call her when they wanted someone to come visit. They'd call me when the water heater broke. She gave them time. I gave them money. Guess which one got better lighting? It wasn't always this lopsided. Back when we were kids, they used to say, "You girls are so different, but both so special." That stopped around the time I turned 24 and started making enough to pay for things they couldn't. By then, Marin was between jobs more often than not, trying acting, then teaching yoga, then making jewelry. She lived with them for nearly a decade after college, rent-free. They used to say she was finding her way. I once paid their property tax so the house wouldn't go into default. You'd think that would have counted for something, and the thing is, I never asked for repayment. I didn't expect them to write me poems or post about me online. But standing there at the reunion, watching my mother praise Marin like she'd moved mountains while I was standing right there, I don't know. Something cracked. It was the way everyone nodded, the way no one seemed confused. That was what did it. No one blinked. Because to them, it made sense. Of course it was Marin who'd always been there. Of course I was the one who never lifted a finger. So when I got home, I opened my laptop, and I started canceling. Every auto transfer, every standing order. Mortgage support? Gone. Groceries? Done. The gas card I paid off every month? Snipped. The account I used to wire them cash each time their furnace just stopped working again? Closed. Even the dentist bill that was due the next day, I let it default. And it wasn't rage. It wasn't spite. It was clarity. If I was invisible, fine. But I wasn't going to pay for the privilege. I could have sent a message, explained everything. But they made their choice publicly. They got to live with the consequences privately. I didn't hear from them the next day. Not a single call, not a single text, which was almost cute, because clearly someone had just told them to give her space. Like I was a toddler throwing a tantrum over snack options. Not a woman who'd just been publicly erased in front of 52 people after funneling 6 years of financial lifeblood into a house I didn't live in. But sure, give her space. That'll do it. By Monday, they were home. I only knew because my dad's Facebook changed locations. Great weekend with family. We are so blessed. No mention of me, obviously. And still, radio silence. I pictured them walking through the front door and realizing things felt a little different. Maybe the cable box wouldn't load. Maybe the thermostat flashed a low battery warning. Maybe the grocery delivery didn't show up. That the automatic bank transfer for the mortgage, which normally hit first thing, hadn't come through. I imagined my mom blinking at her phone bill, seeing it bounce back, then checking the gas bill, then the water, then the credit card that was in my name, the one they used just for emergencies but somehow kept buying concert tickets with. Declined. Not that I was spying, but I did happen to check my inbox, and the alerts were already rolling in. Failed payment. Failed payment. Transfer declined. It was like watching dominoes fall, quietly, satisfyingly. They must have called the bank because that afternoon, the joint account I'd let them use for household expenses showed an attempted login from a new device. Twice. It locked itself after the second try. Oops. That night, around 9:30, there was a knock on my door. I didn't open it right away. I just stood in the hallway, back flat to the wall, staring at the wood like it had eyes. Then I heard my mother's voice. Nadia? I opened the door. She looked tired. No makeup. Wind-blown hair. One of those thin cardigans she wears when she wants to look fragile. My dad stood behind her, arms crossed. Not angry, just there. Can we come in? She asked. No, I said. But we can talk here. She glanced around like she was embarrassed to be on my porch. We just wanted to clear the air, she began. I'm sure, she sighed. What happened at the reunion? You mean when you stood up in front of 52 people and said, I've never lifted a finger? That wasn't meant how it sounded. I tilted my head. It sounded pretty clear. It was a moment, she said. Marin had just given us that photo, and everyone was watching, and she's been going through a hard time. She always is. She's trying, my mom said. You know how much she struggles. And she just wanted to do something nice. So you decided to announce she was the good daughter and I was, what, an afterthought? That's not fair. No, I said. What's not fair is paying over $150,000 toward your bills over the past 15 years and getting told I've never lifted a finger. Her face froze. My dad blinked. I hadn't planned to say it. But once it was out, I felt lighter, like letting go of something heavy. That number's real, by the way, I added. I ran the math. Mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, surprise dental bills. The time I paid off Marin's credit card because she couldn't breathe from the stress. It adds up. We never asked you to, my dad said finally. No, you didn't, I agreed. You just let me. Year after year, a silence fell. My mom stared at the potted plant next to my door. My dad looked like he wanted to be somewhere else. Then she said, So what? This is about money? No, I said. It's about you standing in front of everyone and calling me invisible, and expecting me to keep acting like I'm not. But we didn't think you'd take it so personally. I laughed. Well, here we are. That's when she softened her voice. The shift. We just want to fix this, she said. We love you. Then maybe you should have said that instead of rewriting the last 15 years of your life with a speech and a photo frame. She nodded like she accepted that. But then she said, Marin didn't mean to hurt you. She didn't say it. You did. More silence. Eventually, I said, If you came here to ask for help with the house, I'm not the right daughter anymore. And then I closed the door. 2 days later, Marin showed up. She rang the bell twice, like she was in a rush. When I opened it, she didn't wait for an invite. She just walked in like it was still 2012 and she was borrowing my heels without asking. Do you know what you're doing to them? She asked. I shut the door calmly. You'll have to be more specific. They're panicking. They said the mortgage is due in 3 days, and they don't have enough. Huh. You didn't even warn them. I raised an eyebrow. You mean after Mom stood up in front of 52 people and said I'd never done anything for them? She rolled her eyes. She got caught up in the moment. Then let the moment pay the bills. You're being spiteful. No, I said. I'm being factual. You all said I never helped. I'm just adjusting my behavior to match. They don't have the money. You live with them. She blinked. You don't pay rent. You don't cover utilities. But you do have time to make collage gifts and post about self-care Sunday. That's not fair. Neither was the speech. Marin looked like she wanted to scream, but she was smart enough to know it wouldn't help. There are parents, she said finally. You're just going to let them struggle? No, I said. I'm going to let you step up. You're the daughter who always loved them, remember? And for the first time, I saw her falter. Just a flicker. A little twitch in the corner of her mouth. A crack in the mask. They need help. Then get a job. She turned and walked out without another word. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because anything was resolved, not because they'd apologized, but because, for once, I wasn't the one holding everything up. And I wasn't lifting a finger. They went public. It started with a Facebook post, my mom's, obviously. A smiling group photo from the reunion, captioned, "Family means everything." Even when some people forget that, then came the comments. She walked out because your speech upset her? I mean, it wasn't even rude. You just said the truth. If someone gets offended just for hearing the truth, maybe there's a reason. Nobody said my name. They didn't have to. 52 people heard the quote. Most of them were on Facebook. All of them saw the photo. A few distant cousins commented with crying face emojis. One posted a vaguely religious meme about forgiveness. No one asked what I'd been doing for the last decade and a half. No one asked why the sightseeing boat and the cabin and the group dinner all magically vanished when I left. I wasn't tagged, but I saw it. A mutual sent me a screenshot with a shrug emoji. For a while, I said nothing. Let them talk. But then someone posted, "She was always kind of cold, right?" Not really involved. And my mom liked it, so I replied. One post, no snark, no commentary, just screenshots, bank statements, confirmation emails, wire transfers, rent checks, texts confirming receipt. The final total was spelled out at the bottom, just in case someone's thumb got tired scrolling. Over the years, I paid $48,600 toward their mortgage. Another $35,760 in household bills. Groceries came to $21,240, and medical costs, prescriptions, copays, all of it, hit $7,080. When the roof caved in, I wired $6,850 without blinking. My sister's tuition? $17,950. I even covered a car repair last winter. $8,100 for a transmission they forgot to mention. Add a canceled family trip deposit for $2,300 and a dozen smaller things I stopped keeping track of. Altogether, $147,880. I didn't tag anyone. I just posted it, left it public, then closed the app and went to bed. By morning, the original post was gone. So were 3 others that had tried to defend it. And then came the texts. From my aunt. I had no idea you'd done all that. You've always been so quiet about it. From my cousin James. That's insane. If I were you, I'd never speak to them again. From my mother. Nothing. But from Marin? Okay, we need to talk. The next time I saw her, she had dark circles under her eyes and a reusable grocery bag in her hand. She looked 10 pounds lighter, and not in a good way. "Can we talk?" she said. No hello. I stepped aside. She walked in like it wasn't her first time. "They made me get a job," she said. Just like that. Like she was reporting a war crime. "Welcome to adulthood." I'm serious, Nadia. So am I. She dropped the bag on the counter. It had canned soup and ramen, a few off-brand paper towels, no produce. They said I had to help now. Because you're gone. And you're the one who made everything work, apparently. Her voice cracked halfway through. They said that? She blinked, realizing what she'd just admitted. I mean, not like that, but they're struggling. They chose you, Marin. At the reunion, in front of everyone. You were the daughter who'd always loved them. I was just trying to be nice. I didn't know Mom was going to say that, and you didn't correct her. I was caught off guard. No, I said. You liked it. She didn't deny it. They need help, she said. Then help them. I can't afford everything. I looked at her. Really looked at her. The messy hair, the wrinkled shirt, the too thin arms. She wasn't sleeping. She wasn't eating. She was unraveling. Try harder, I said, and I closed the door behind her. They showed up together this time. My mom, my dad, and Marin, shoulders slumped like kids outside the principal's office. They didn't knock at first, just stood at the bottom of my porch steps until I noticed them through the window. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. We're sorry, my mom said, voice small, older than I remembered. My dad didn't speak. Marin looked done. She didn't even pretend to smile. Her eyes were hollow, not angry, just tired. We shouldn't have said what we said, my mom went on. It was stupid. We didn't think. No, I said. You did think. You just didn't think it would cost you anything. She looked down. It was in the moment, Marin said. You know how Mom gets. And I liked hearing it. That's on me. I know. But we didn't mean it, my mom said. Not really. I nodded. Doesn't matter now. You made a choice. You need to understand. No, I said. You need to understand. You told 52 people that I'd never lifted a finger for this family, while I was still paying your mortgage, your bills, while my name was on your insurance, your utilities, your everything. I paid $147,880 to be erased. They said nothing. And now, I said, you get to live with that. My mom swallowed. My dad looked away. Marin stared at her shoes. Silence. I waited for a fight, a tearful plea, but there was nothing. Just 3 people who finally realized what they'd lost. I'm not angry anymore, I said. I'm just done. And I closed the door. A few months later, I heard Marin moved out. She lasted longer than I thought, but in the end, it was too much. The bills, the errands, the late-night calls, it caught up to her. She found a smaller place, farther away, and didn't leave a forwarding address. Not long after, my parents sold the house, the one I helped them keep afloat for 9 years, the one they said I'd never lifted a finger to save. They took what they could get and downsized fast. Now they're in a rental with thin walls and flickering lights. I know, because my cousin drove past. I never went back. Not because I'm angry, because I'm done. Some people think family is forever. Others learn the hard way it's conditional. Did I go too far? Or not far enough? Leave a comment and subscribe.